Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So today we're checking out 10 new decks to try out with the cards that have been adjusted in today's OTA. So diving right on into it, first up we are taking the changed Angela and Miles Morales for a spin in this Tempo Move deck. This is a deck I've been liking quite a lot before the patch. I've been playing Shang in the Miles spot, but I do think that is pretty much your tech spot that you can adapt to whatever pocket meta you might be seeing. I liked Shang because I kept running into a bunch of 10 power targets, but I figured for trying out the new 4/6 Miles, that could be another nice addition just for some good points for low cost. Or you could also opt to put in another tech of your choice, maybe some ongoing hate, maybe a bigger 6-drop. You could try the buffed Alioth. You could really try a lot of stuff in that spot, but the core of this deck is just trying to put efficient stats down for cost, and we play so many different moving cards that's often difficult for the opponent to easily calculate where our final points are going to end up at the end of the game. Athena and Angela have been really good early scalers. Kitty enables the Athena and Angela plans really well. Even with the Angela nerf, I think this deck has a very solid chance of still being a really strong and fun version of Move to play. And we have a Athena Evo, so Evo is bumping his way up to a 4/6 as well, and it sounds like that might not be the last change we see for this archetype. Evo has been kind of underperforming for a while now, especially higher up on the ladder, so it's nice to see them giving some love to this archetype that is really important for, I think, like the newer player experience. If you just get dumped into pool 3 and you don't really know what to do, one of the best things that I always recommend is going for Evo, because you don't really need a whole ton of other newer cards in order to have a fun and relatively successful time with High Evolutionary. So it's nice to see Evo become less of a lemon, and I'm hoping that we see some of the other nerfs to this archetype reverted, like the Wasp and Thing nerfs. But this is a Athena version. Shout out to Top Tier Harley for suggesting this one. They've been playing a very similar version, and it seems like a really cool idea. We do have Hope, which gets us some more value out of Kitty. Evo always appreciates the extra mana, whether it's for our Sunspot, or Hulk, or Cyclops, She-Hulk, etc. And it doesn't have a hard time playing 2 cards a turn. Mobius is probably our flex spot here. I think there are so many decks that are weak to Mobius right now, namely the Mockingbird and Sasquatch stuff, which is very popular. So I do think he is probably your tech card of choice right now. Then we have a deck I really want to be good, but don't think it will be, and that is the Rude Move deck. So just trying to move your opponent's cards all over the board and get some value out of this new 1/2 Kingpin. I think there could be something to 1/2 Kingpin. I don't know if this deck is going to be the best way to use him, but I do think this is very much more of a fun deck than a necessarily competitive one. But if you really like bonking your opponent's stuff all over the board, this deck has pretty much all the cards that want to do that, with Polaris, Stegron, Arrow, Magneto. You even have Hercules, so you can bounce him out. I think there are some cool things that can happen here now that we have a 3/4 Hercules. So you could be using your Silk and then having the Silk bounce back out of the Hercules lane, get more Craven procs. It just seems like kind of a fun thing to do. But I think it's going to take more experimenting in game, as well as seeing what kind of other stuff people are playing in order to fully adapt a deck like this to be viable in the metagame. But this is a starting point if you want to do move your opponent's stuff kind of stuff. And while we're on the Cope move train, there is a classic combo of doing the Magneto Kingpin on the final turn of the game, or doing some Ghost Spider shenanigans using Magneto to pull your opponent's cards to one lane and then yoink the Magneto out of there. I think that can always be fun and catch people by surprise, so it's another way we can go about using our Kingpin here. And also having Cannonball in 2099 for a little bit of that surprise element that people often are not going to see coming. When it comes to Hercules, though, I think the archetype that probably has the biggest benefit from him might just be Phoenix Force. It was always kind of an awkward slot in the curve with Phoenix Force, and while it's not going to be your priority card to play, I do think it is a bit more flexible now than it used to be in these type of lists. So I think there's a chance Herc might actually be a much more viable card as a 3/4 than he was as a 4/7. So Phoenix Force, if you're a fan of that deck, I think it's definitely worth giving Herc a try there. Then we have Tempo Sand. This is a deck I've liked quite a bit. You don't necessarily need Makari. I know a lot of people do not have Makari, and I think this archetype appreciates a free 3/4 because it's just trying to get stats out. But I think it could very easily be replaced with something like Spider Ham, just something to help fill out our curve, interact with the opponent a little bit, and help us enable our Miss Marvel. But game plan, really simple. You're just trying to get your stats down, get down Sandman on 5, and then close out the game with a Doom or the newly buffed Alioth. You could also go with a more ramp style direction with the Sandman stuff. Personally, I think the tempo stuff is a little bit better, but if you really like playing all these big 5 and 6 cost cards, using Electro, Wave, Jubilee, Blink, and such to get some good ramping out so you can get these bigger cards down earlier is not a bad way to go either. One of the decks I'm most excited for is actually Classic Move. I've been playing a little bit of this in preparation for the changes, and I think Hercules is going to be pretty relevant as a potential 3/4 here. The thing I really like about it is it kind of helps you with your Heimdall not necessarily putting all your stuff where your opponent is going to expect it to be. If you have one of your big moving threats, like a Human Torch or a Dagger or a Craven, being the first card that is moving into that Hercules lane, you know it's going to bounce out and be in one of the other 2 lanes. And with how big things like those cards can get after a few movements, sometimes, especially with Dagger, that can be enough to just solo a lane. So I do think that helps out quite a bit. We also have a new combo enabler here, where if we don't get our Heimdall, we could go with a Hercules and Cloak on turn 5 to enable some more moving shenanigans. Not 100% sold on 2099, but 2099 might be a little bit of cope, but he's really fun when he works, and if he is going to work, usually these Heimdall decks are one place he does pretty alright in. If you're looking for something a little bit less conventional in terms of the Heimdall move stuff, this one I think can be pretty cool. We have Fastos to reduce the cost or buff the power of some of our cards, and something I saw a long time ago was someone putting Alioth in Move, and the idea behind that was, well, when you see Vulture and Craven and all these other cards, most people are going to assume, oh, they're going to play Heimdall, I'll play around Heimdall. So I think you actually have a lot of potential cube equity in being able to say, hey, I'm not going to play Heimdall, I'm just going to play something that blanks the cards you're playing on the final turn of the game. Or maybe you can play Heimdall or Alioth as early as turn 5 if you draw it with some cost reduction off of your Fastos. I think the traditional version probably ends up stronger, but I think this one will be very interesting to try as well. And last but not least, probably the most ambitious deck of the bunch, all-in combo version of Move. The idea here being we are bouncing our cheap 1-drops or our Dagger to hand to replay them, get more procs, bounce them, and then eventually slam down a big one on the final turn of the game and copy it with our Taskmaster. I do think this deck is probably very fragile and disruptible, so you do really need kind of the right hands to make things work. It is an all-in combo deck, but the potential I think is pretty high. We have Ravonna here because reducing the cost on things like Dagger and Taskmaster enables some pretty crazy late game turns. For example, if we buff up a Dagger a bit, get it back to hand, we can then play Iron Fist, get Dagger down, it'll move the Dagger, and then close with a Taskmaster to copy our large Dagger, which could be even bigger if we're bumping it into a Hercules lane. It is a very all-in combo deck though, so sometimes you will just get hands that don't do anything, but that is just kind of how these type of decks go sometimes. And yeah, those are 10 decks I'm excited to try out with the new OTA, which should be live by the time of this going up. So let me know what you think of the decks and the OTA in the comments below, and if you're looking for the decks, they will be in the description if you want to import any of them to try for yourself in game. That's going to wrap it up for this one though. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.